Hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another season-starting edition of Third Degree, the podcast. I'm not Peter Welpton, putting on a charming English accent. It's Dan, meaning that Peter's not just taking a break from introducing, he's not actually here this week, which is why this is going to sound kind of choppy today. With us always is Third Degree founder, editor, captain, starting centre midfielder, leader, legend, president, Shady Club secretary, and all-around nice guy, Buzz Carrick.
Hello, Dan. Calling in today from outside the buildings at the Ticket, where I'm trying to find Clark Hunt because he's breaking news all over the Ticket today.
They're not going to let you in. We got banned last time when we recorded the podcast there.
Did we? I forgot.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this for a second time because I screwed up the recording. So you know, that's a short memory.
Well, hopefully it'll be tighter and cleaner and faster this time, and maybe it was for the best. Get a little practice, scrape the rust off, get going.
Preseason training, that's best.
Yeah.
Well, heading into preseason, we've got a bunch of stuff to cover. Looking at the end of last year, what's happened over the winter. Mostly the snow and 80-degree day and tornadoes and all that. That was a crazy 24 hours. Speaking of some crazy goings on, FC Dallas made a trade that was just for straight money. I think for the first time that I can remember in bringing over Picault from the Philadelphia Union. What do you think of Picault? What can you tell our listeners?
Well, effectively, even though the trade was actually just for money, effectively it was a trade for Don Badji. They traded for Badji for money, cleared a spot, and then traded for this guy. It plays the same position. So it's a question of style fit. Badji didn't fit the Lucci ball, but this guy, Picault, having talked to one of the beat writers up in Philadelphia, great guy, positive guy. Everyone likes him, good locker room guy, works hard. The reason that Philadelphia didn't want him anymore is because he didn't fit their system. So it's the same with FC Dallas wanting to get rid of Badji. Not wanting to get rid of, but looking to trade a positive asset in Badji. Because Philly doesn't use wide wingers, which is this guy's strongest suit, Picault's strongest suit. They use a system that has two strikers and no wide wings like FC Dallas does. So this is a guy that can get behind players, loves to run behind players, loves to dribble at people with the ball at his feet. He can play defense and high press like Lucci wants. So stylistically, he's a much better fit for Lucci ball. And he did have a much higher production when he was playing as a winger for Philly 2 years ago than he did last year when they used him as a as an off striker, like a deeper striker. He can play both right and left wing, and he can play as a 9 too. Now, if he does play as a 9, it'll be a different style than Cobra. Cobra's a stand-up, post up, get in the box kind of guy. Pico would be more of a stretch the field kind of guy. So good style versatility there if you need him to play as a 9. But bread and butter for him is going to be one of the wingers. Now, right this minute, of course, Michael Barrios is your right wing, and Santiago Mosquera coming out of last season is your left wing. Santi's going to have to really work to keep Pico off of the lineup, though, because he does bring a level of production that Santi never has. So there's going to be some competition at that spot, maybe even some competition for Barrios possibly, because Pico can play right as well. So good fit for Lucci ball, much better fit than Badji, and I like it as a positive move. I think it's a good thing.
Definitely. And, one thing that the FC Dallas has lacked largely on the left, really since the loss of Fabian Castillo, is you had the goal threat from both sides. You had, Barrios was assisting for fun and scoring the occasional goal. You had Castillo was finishing for fun. Even, bringing in, what's his name? He who shall not be named, the French guy. Oh, God. Terrible player. Wow.
I got nothing, man.
Yeah. I can't remember what his name was. That's really bad. But
Google it and clean it up.
Nah, he's not worth it.
Okay.
Yeah, the French guy who's evidently forgettable. He was scoring in bunches, but teams weren't marking him. He wasn't really like an out-and-out threat on the wing. It was more he'd just creep into the box. To actually have an out-and-out threat on the wing, a guy who scored 10 goals, made 5 assists in 2018, to balance Barrios and really give defenders trouble and a real pick your poison moment. It's going to be hopefully kind of a much better attack off the left, not just relying on Barrios to switch wings.
Yeah, there's the component they've been missing is the verticality component. They've had guys over there that have been okay, but not could balance Barrios, and hopefully Picault can do that more than guys like Roland Lamar could.
Yeah, that was it.
More than Jossie could. More than Pablo Aranguiz could, playing as a false wing. So this guy's going to actually be the kind of player. Even Badji, when he was over there, wanted to cheat in and play center channel instead of playing high and wide. So the high and wide part, the pressing part, the defensive part, all that's a better fit, and all that should be a better complement for FC Dallas. And hopefully he's going to be an impact player. We'll see.
You can tell it's pre-season when I can't remember. I still can't remember Roland Lamar's name. And then when you said Edwin Jossie, my internal reaction was, who? Oh, that guy.
Jossie, yeah. Oh, yeah. Jesse, probably.
Best 20 minutes ever till he got injured. Oh, he faked an injury.
Faked an injury, yeah.
The other splash that FC Dallas made so far, probably a bit splashier, a solid $1 million signing. Thiago Santos from Palmeiras, 31-year-old defensive midfielder, guy with some real pedigree. What more from what you've seen can he bring to FC Dallas?
Yeah, this signing reminds me of a saying from the movie Beverly Hills Cop. It's not sexy, it's animal. Because this is not a sexy signing, but this dude is, from what I'm hearing, is a legit Grezzo level 6, pure 6, thug 6, super active, sideline to sideline, quick, decisive, dominates the middle of the park. That this replaces Grezzo effectively.
I can't wait until Peter cuts in. It's not sexy, it's animal as a cold open one day.
Do you remember that scene from the art studio? I don't know if you remember that.
I haven't seen those in a while. I need to rewatch them. Every Eddie Murphy movie for me lately has been Coming to America. So
yeah, it's not sexy, it's animal. Anyway, Santos. I assumed that when the FC Dallas was going to get a 6, I was thinking more of a veteran, sort of fill in the gaps a little bit when Brian Acosta couldn't play. But this is a signing that's like a replace Acosta signing. This is a move Acosta out of there signing. We've already seen on the whiteboard that Lucci had that Thiago Santos is penciled in as a starter already. Brian Acosta's been moved back up to the 8, and that gives you Acosta and Cervania at 1-8 and Paxton and Frey at the other 8. Lots of competition in midfield. Hopefully this guy's going to be the real deal. Now, we need to reserve some judgment till we see him. I mean, the tape looked good on YouTube, but let's see how he deals in training. Let's see how he looks. He shouldn't have any troubles with fitness because I think they're coming out of competition pretty recently, in their league down there and their cup down there. So he shouldn't be that out of shape, depending on when his visa gets cleared and when he actually gets here. But I'm confident he'll be fit and in place by the time the season starts. And if he doesn't, if it takes him a couple weeks, that's fine. You can always use Acosta in there just like you have been and let him work his way in. But this is an impact signing and a good signing, and I'm positive that it's going to be a good one. I feel positive it's going to be a good one.
Definitely. And saying about, when he actually does get in, speaking to people at FC Dallas, they anticipate a couple of weeks, kind of similar to how Bresson was. It took a couple of weeks to get his visa. Yay, visas. But it won't be anything like Brian Acosta was, where, he was a very long time since Honduras was on the naughty list for some reason. So should really he's going to miss realistically, the California portion of preseason games against and North Texas Rayados, Vancouver, Los Angeles FC, you know, probably not worth risking him at the San Antonio game if he gets in for that. You know, so it'd be a nice practice. His first game, likely against the Philadelphia Union 10 days before playing him in the league opener.
Yeah, it should be enough time. He should be able to step right in, I would think, a player of his level and his experience. I mean, maybe a little bit of fitness work, possibly, but like I said, I expect him to be in shape. So we'll see how it goes. They don't need him day one, but because they have other options. But I'm sure it won't take too long to get him up to speed. So the nice thing about Thiago Santos is that because Andre Zanata came from Gremio, when I talked to Zanata about the Santos the other day, he told me that he actually has been trying to get him from way back when he was at Gremio. So this is a player he's coveted for a long time. And Palmeiras was looking this year, just recently, to jettison money, jettison talent, and rebuild and tear down their whole squad and sort of start over from scratch. And so they're jettisoning players that are good players. And because Zanata's brother works at Palmeiras, they were able to facilitate this deal. But I think it speaks well of the player that Zanata's been after him for a couple of years, way back to when he was at Gremio. So this isn't a flash in the pan signing. This is a guy he's coveted. So that speaks well. And it'll be the first signing that we can 100% put on Zanata's roster, as if this one pays off and works, check mark in your favor. If it's a crash and burn, well, that's obviously a negative in Zanata's check sheet. But I think it speaks well of the value of this. This isn't a flash in the pan signing. This is a guy. He's won it for a long time. I think that says something.
Definitely, and and the older head who can really help out the younger guys in the midfield, just in practice every day in terms of growing. And I think we hear a lot about FC Dallas doesn't spend a lot of money, and they're not going to make a Chicharito kind of signing, but there was a decent outlay on Grueso. They more than got that back. They got Acosta for a couple of million. They spent another $1 million on Thiago Santos. It's there's a lot of emphasis on building the midfield up, and building the midfield up is building possession. It is everything that kind of plays into, really the key tenets of Lucci ball.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about this guy, and as Zanata pointed out when I talked to him, that he's maintained himself as a high-level starter on one of the big Brazilian teams for years, and that's not as easy as it sounds. And this guy's got some mental toughness. I think it's going to be a positive addition to the squad. Now we'll have to see when he gets into training. The tape is one thing, training something else. So we'll reserve judgment until we see him, but I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, and we'll have a little bit of a wait. The team are expecting him to take a couple of weeks to get his visa, similar to Bressan. Just getting that visa for whatever reason is. Actually, no, as someone who has a visa, let me tell you, it's a very lengthy process. Shouldn't be as long as Brian Acosta, since Honduras was on the naughty list with USCIS. But, you're going to expect to... He's not going to... he's probably going to make the Florida trip at the very end of practice. His preseason, sorry. His first game, may well be that Philadelphia game 10 days before the teams play, in the season opener. So, unfortunately, if you're expecting to see him in that Austin Bold game, you may be a little bit disappointed. He maybe do some warm-ups if he's around, well, assuming he's around at that time. But, should be really... February 29th to really see him if he's starting. And spoke about the whole whiteboard thing that he was ahead of had Acosta up in the 8th spot ahead of him, so we do anticipate him starting.
Yeah, I would imagine so. He may take a couple of weeks to get up to speed, but a player of this experience level shouldn't have a problem. I'm sure he's going to come in fit. I'm sure FC Dallas has given him an off-season training program Tracy and those guys. I'm sure he's going to be fine. If you have to start the season with somebody else in there, no big deal. Brian Acosta's fine. The long run plan, it'll be Thiago Santos for sure, I'm sure. So it just may not be instantaneously, but that's no big deal. It's a long season.
Very long, and we're only just at the start of pre-season. At the end of this week, crazy. Speaking of things at the start of the season, we had the Super Draft. FC Dallas picking out 5 players. 3 from the first 2 rounds. Manuel Ferriol in the second round, and then first round, probably the most likely to make some headway with FC Dallas would be Nicosi Burgess and Cal Jennings. You've definitely gave us the scouting report at the time on Twitter. What sort of thing can we expect from the pair of them?
Well, Burgess is a big physical center back, but he's got really nice feet and he can pass really well too, which are components for Lucci ball. But he needs a lot of tactical work. He's a very raw player. He hasn't played as much as you would like. My guess is that he hasn't been super valued wherever he's been, probably because he was learning to grow into his size. He's a very big kid. Sometimes those guys mature a little later in terms of their game, just because of how long it takes them to get completely coordinated and athletic. And this kid now, if you look at the tape, is impressive. So diamond in the rough, though. I imagine he'll play a whole lot this year for North Texas. But I do expect him to be the 5th center back on the FC Dallas roster, just so he can be in training every day with FC Dallas and learning. When you pick a guy 14th overall, you expect him to make the team. Unless he's a complete bust, he will. Cal Jennings, on the other hand, is the guy that I wanted coming into the draft. I was hoping that he would slide to 14, and then Dallas didn't pick him, and I was heartbroken, but thankfully he lasted to 17. You're looking at a guy who's a first-team All-American, first-team All-Conference, Conference Player of the Year, led D1 in shots, led D1 in goals, has a bunch of hat tricks. This is a game-changing player in college. Now, can that translate to the program just like from that? Well, no, but if you watch the tape or if you watch him in person, he's a dynamic player. He's got verticality. He's got breakaway pace. He's got moves to make space. He can get behind. He can high press. I saw him pick pockets and score goals that way. And he's an in-the-box kind of player. He gets in the box and he converts, and he scores goals in big moments. He converts crosses, and converts at a high rate, a high efficiency in the box. Now, can all that impact on MLS? Probably not right away. You'll probably see him start with North Texas some while he gets his feet underneath him. But I actually think this is a player that'll make some rosters over the course of the season, and we'll get into some MLS games over the course of the season. He's going to compete with Pepe for some of that late-game time. Right now, they only have one striker in Coleman on the roster, so there's room for this guy to get a little action. And I think when you get this times of the year when there's lots of call-ups, you'll see him get some chances and you'll see him make some impact. Probably not a Rookie of the Year kind of impact, but some level of impact. And I think he'll be the most influential pick they made this year for what that's worth. The last guy, Manuel Ferriol, he plays a 10 at James Madison, but I don't think he's going to be a 10. Lucci emphasized that he could play as a 6 and has played as a 6, but I don't think he meant it like that he would be a 6. I think that's Lucci speak for he's willing to play some defense, so that probably means he's an 8. Now, the roster's probably pretty full already. It's definitely full at the 8 type position, so North Texas, however, could use a guy in that spot. Right now, they only have Emmanuel Almaguer at the 8, so this guy could be a body. Now, will he take a North Texas deal? He's got to be an international player, so he might have some pull to go back to Spain where he's from, or maybe he's getting some USL pull, so he may not be interested in a North Texas contract. But if he is, it was nice to see what he can do, what he has to offer. And then anybody else past that guy, it's all going to be North Texas. Can you prove any value? Will you take a North Texas deal to develop and show what you got? Because there's just not room, unless something really, really surprising happens. There's just not room on the FC Dallas roster for more than 2 of these guys.
So with that pretty full roster, how do you feel it compares to last year? Is FC Dallas better today than it was at the end of last year, or even at the start of last year?
I think it's better than it was at the end of last year, but I don't think I think it actually is right even with where it was at the start of last year. You've talking about essentially Baji for Picault. Now, we've talked about Picault's production and how we like it, but remember last year, Baji was banging in goals like crazy. So from our mentality standpoint, we're about as confident in Picault right now as we were in Baji coming into last year. Now, Baji didn't work out, so if Picault does work out, that's better. But right now, it's about the same. you only have the real question, of course, is Coleman. No, goodness, Coleman. I got Coleman on the brain because he went to Barcelona today. Cobra at the 9. Now, if Cobra repeats what he did last year for the last 10 games and has a 20, 25 goal season, then great. FC Dallas is way better. But that's a lot of weight and a lot of if on one guy. Because if he doesn't do that, and he didn't score on the road, and it was only a short span of time, if he's not on, if he gets hurt, Dallas is going to be in trouble again. So really, Cobra is all they have. That's exactly like they were at the beginning of last year again. So, there is more competition for places, particularly in midfield. But Thiago Santos frees up Acosta to go back to the 8. So Acosta, Servania, Jesus, Ferreira, and Paxton Pomykal, those 4 guys for 2 spots. 4 really, really guys, so really good guys there. So it's possible that you could see Servania and Acosta be your 2 starting 8s in there, and maybe Pomykal and Ferreira have to go compete in wing. Maybe they'll be on the bench some. So all in all, I don't think you can say FC Dallas is better right now than they were at the start of last year. I think it's exactly the same place as it was a year ago. So they still got some work to do.
Now, you mentioned Cobra, spelled specifically with the K, like the K in Garden Snake, in case he gets bad again. We did see on draft day some video clips in the war room and in Lucci's office, and there happened to be a whiteboard. Now, you've already referenced this whiteboard. It had Thiago Santos starting at the 6. It had Hara or Jara, or however you want to say it, ahead of Cobra. Now, we did some digging at the time, and we figured out that the only striker whose name is Hara, who isn't 57, because there actually was one that was 57.
Yeah, really old guy, yeah.
Is Franco Jara, 31-year-old Argentine forward at Pachuca, who FC Dallas fans may remember for his 3rd-minute goal in the Conca Champions a couple of years ago.
Yeah, now we're doing a little reaching here because this is not like 100% concrete name, but when you see the coach's office and their starting 11 on a board behind the coach and it says Jara or Hara on the wall, that's a pretty good indicator. And we've talked about the Dallas's need for a 9 for a long time now, and in particular this specific season, to put all your eggs in the Cobra basket. As much as you like Cobra, as much as we all like Cobra when he's scoring, that's a lot of the season carried by one guy. He's got to have.
He's never done it consistently for a season in his career.
Right, but that's what I mean. It's like that's too much on one guy when you're talking about a professional organization. You have to get another 9. So this guy makes a lot of sense. Now, if this Franco Jara was 27, we'd be dancing in the streets. This would be amazing. You're talking about a guy who, at 31, though, is still producing. He's got 8 goals in 16 games in Liga MX. That is not bad. That's a pretty good strike rate. His contract was up in the summer, and Lucci, you remember in the Athletic article, talked about the next 2 windows being active. Well, that makes sense because they were going to get him for free in the summer, and they're trying to convince him to come now. And most importantly, Dan Hunt was on the ticket as we started recording this podcast, saying that the FC Dallas is about to announce a striker from Mexico.
FC Dallas, in fact, has a very big announcement coming on a player that we're signing from the Mexican First Division. Yep. And
are the rumors out there?
That it's been totally quiet so far, so you guys are the first to know.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Well, because that was the next question. Are you willing to spend that type of dough that it takes to...
Yeah, we have a player coming that we think is going to be a difference maker. He's going to help us score a lot of goals and hopefully bring a championship back.
From Mexico.
From Mexico.
And when is this announcement going to be made?
In the next week or so.
After the football game?
Yeah, well, we haven't coordinated it with the football game, but yeah, yes, after the AFC Championship game.
Okay, this guy, Franco Jara, is from Pachuca. He's a striker from Mexico. He's from Argentina, but he plays in Mexico. He's a goal-scoring, goal-producing, trophy-winning player from a team that over the last 5-6 years, Pachuca's been fantastic. So, it's a perfect fit for a Hunt owned FC Dallas. Now we know the Hunts were never going to go spend $7 million, $10 million. We're not getting Funes Mari back. As much as I like to joke about that and dream about it, we know that's not happening. This guy on Transfer Market, Jara, was listed as $3.5 million. FC Dallas probably would have liked to have waited for his contract to be up. Maybe they've negotiated some kind of early release. We'll have to wait and see for this announcement. Hunt said it's going to be after the AFC Championship game that it'll take place. Not immediately, just in the week after that is what he was saying on the ticket. So, we feel pretty confident that it's this guy, Franco Jara. We'll see if it really is. Now, if it is him, I like it. I think this guy's about as good as a player as you're going to get for the amount of money the Hunts are willing to spend. A guy that can produce, a guy that can compete with Andresic, a guy that can mentor Ricardo Pepi because he plays the kind of game that I think Pepi can play. And so this is a good ad. This is a good FC Dallas piece. He's has the right Latin American style and flavor that fits within the FC Dallas organizational culture. So I feel really good about this move. Now, if this move happens and it's legit, then yes, FC Dallas will be better this year than they were at the start of last year and the end of last year. This is a positive move. If it is the guy, then I quite like it. And I think it's going to make FC Dallas a top 3 team in the West. Maybe not quite MLS Cup winning, but it's a movement in the right direction.
And I will say, he's definitely not past it. Looking at, I know the Apertura Clausura thing is confusing as hell when you come from Europe, but he's scored 30 goals in his past 2 seasons.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is this guy's been producing in Liga MX. Liga MX is not chump change. I mean, this is a legitimate league that most people will tell you is better than MLS. If it's not, it's at least equal. So this is a guy that's still been getting it done at the top level. And if it's a case where he can't beat out Cobra, then that means Cobra's going to be killing it. So, either way that it goes, whether this guy makes Cobra better or whether he becomes the guy and Cobra gets better because he's fighting him, or whether he drags Pepi in the direction we want Pepi to go. But all those things are positives, and this guy, Franco Jara, I think is going to be a positive addition. If indeed it is the guy, and all signs are pointing that it is. But until we see it on paper, and again, like anybody else, it'll take a little bit to get the paperwork done. So he's not going to be starting the opening game of the season. But within him, if they can get him now, like the Clark Hunt says they are, instead of having to wait to June, that's terrific. Earlier the better, right? And you want to get him ingrained, get him feeling good about being with Dallas, and get him worked into the team. That's the ideal.
One thing we kind of had circled was to talk about another potential winger or really what FC Dallas's maybe plan A or plan B was regarding the wing.
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting about when Lucci did that Athletic article, I think that was where he said it, that they weren't just looking for one player. There might be 2 players. And I think that player is still a wing. And the reason I say that is because they traded for Fafa Picault on November 26th, right around Thanksgiving, right? Well, about a week before that, on November 17th-ish, were the stories about the winger Roman Philippopto, who I'm probably butchering that name, from Nimes in France, whose move was rejected. Now, there was enough talk with that story, like the team was quoted and he was quoted, so there was enough legitimacy there to that story that it was an actual pursuit by FC Dallas. Now, I'm not saying that they go back to that player specifically. I'm just saying that in order for Pico to have been traded, literally 8-9 days later, and including in that was Thanksgiving, that to me means that they were seeking this signing at the same time they were trying to trade for Pico. So I think that says that they're still on the market for a wing. Because right now you have, let's say for hypothetically, Pico's a left winger, and you have Santiago Mosquera as your left winger. You have Michael Barras in your right winger, and then you have question marks. Could you use Jesus Paxton? Sure. Maybe you have Francis Atuahene or Amateur Monsi. Maybe use a false winger and Thomas Roberts. Lots of ifs and buts, right? So for me, I think if you're trying to build a frontline competitive 2 guys at every spot kind of roster, that there's excuse me, still room for another winger on this team, another guy, prime of a career. So that one's a little bit of a more of a tea leaf reading one from me that I think they're still after a wing. But when I look at the roster, that's where I see there still looks like there's a gap, particularly because even like Santiago Mascara or Fafa Pico, we're not 100% sure on those two guys, right? I mean, we like what Pico looks like, and sometimes we like Mascara, but how often is he healthy? You see what I mean? So I still see a gap for another winger, and based on their actions, I think they're still after one.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I mean, when you look at the 9 days between the Philippoti rumor and the Pico trade, you're waiting for league and US soccer approval. That's a couple of days burn. And there's talking to that thrashing out a deal with Philadelphia and everything else. It's it's not the overnight process that video games like FIFA and Football Manager have us believe. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of with those last 3 roster spots, or at least before any loans or any shock releases, how that pans out. Assuming Hara comes in and takes one. We know FC Dallas likes to keep a roster spot open.
Yep.
Will it be a winger? Will it be another defender for any reason?
Well, I think if they go after a winger, it's more than likely it'll be in the summer, just because there's nothing bubbling that I'm aware of, and they just got Pico. So I think that's a down the line concern. There's going to be some guys going out on loan. You know how it is with FC Dallas and these younger guys. The last 2 years loaning out Tuamase and Tuahene. Before that, they loaned out Jesus, and they loaned out Savania. There's going to be some loan outs like that. Thomas Roberts would be ideal. Brian Reynolds, if Reggie Cannon is still here, and right now it's all the signs are Reggie's not moving now. The signs are Reggie might move in the summer because what I hear is they're not getting high enough offers for his valuation yet. So if Reggie Cannon's here, Brian Reynolds needs to be starting for somebody. So if it's not FC Dallas and North Texas isn't good enough, he's too good for that team. So they need to loan him out to USL Championship team, maybe somebody in MLS. Whoever it is needs to be somewhere where he's going to start, because eventually Reggie Cannon's going. If it's not this summer, it's in the next year for sure. So they got to get Reynolds ready, or they got to get Eddie Mujoma ready. Now, Eddie was just coming in, so I think they'll keep him around because they want to keep him in camp because they're just now getting him. And Reynolds, they know what they got, and they're like, he needs to start. So we're going to send him out. I think they should send him out and start, but probably USL Championship team, maybe somebody they got a good relationship with, an Austin Bold, somebody like that, an OKC, somebody like that. And we also yet to see what's going to happen with Tuamase and a Tuahene. I mean, those guys now going into a 3rd season without really progressing and really getting where we're going. I mean, we need to see something happen with those guys, or I think you're looking at, I hate to say waive, but trade or dump or loan just to get them out of the way. So I think there's a chance some other spots are going to open up. But, and obviously, of course, you're still going to have your North Texas back and forth. So any given week, somebody like Thomas Roberts may or may not actually be on the roster, depending on whether he's quote-unquote loaned that week or Cerrillo's going down and playing with them. So Cerrillo's not on the roster this week. You know how it is. There's a lot of flexibility in the North Texas because of North Texas with the roster these days.
Definitely. And speaking of North Texas roster, a couple of additions that we'd sort of spoken about a little bit. Philip Ponder coming in from SMU. You mentioned him as maybe not being a homegrown target right this time, as Eddie Manjama was, but one to look at in the future. And now now he's under contract with the USL team, and then Gibran Rayo, who'd stepped up from the academy.
Yeah, Ponder is a solid center back, if unspectacular. He has not been getting the conference honors and stuff like that. Like Manjoma is a prototypical Lucci ball outside back who has the goals and assists, up and down the field, et cetera, et cetera. Ponder is a steady, stable, solid defender. He was in the same academy class as Reggie Cannon and Eddie Manjoma that won the DA championship back-to-back, won the 16s and then the 18s back-to-back. So, solid piece, solid player, not ready, not worth, like if he'd been in the draft pool, he probably would have been like a 3rd-round pick maybe. So, a kind of guy who for Dallas they would be interested in for North Texas, like Breck Evans, see if they can develop a little bit, see if he can progress a little bit. I suggested a couple of weeks ago he's perfect to be signed as a guy for North Texas, and obviously not because of what I said, but obviously because they agreed with that analysis that he's taken a deal, and that's fantastic. So that's a good ad. He's a good quiet leader. I like him. Gibran Rayo is interesting. The first academy kid in a while that's taken a contract. He's been with the 19s for 3 seasons now because he played up when he was still U17 eligible. He's a very frequent MLS training camp invite because his touch and pace and skill are good enough to keep up with FC Dallas training. But sometimes with him, the package of when you add up all the skills, you don't quite get the player that you have. He doesn't score a lot of goals. He doesn't assist a lot of goals. He doesn't impact the game like I'd like. There's a lot of raw ability there. It's just somehow it hasn't translated yet into like a player. It's kind of a weird guy. I have trouble putting my finger on him sometimes. So he's actually a perfect kind of player, I think, for a North Texas, a guy that you're like, boy, there's a lot here, but we got to figure out how to get it all going. We got to figure out how to get it working. So he's played a bunch for North Texas already. So you could have seen him play if you've watched him play. I think he played in 12 games with 4 starts, scored a goal. So, the NTX level player already, but not a MLS homegrown level player, and not a guy who would benefit from college and go sit around half the year. This is a guy that will benefit from being around North Texas, and FC Dallas can use him in training, right and left, because they already do. So that's a good position.
You kind of alluded to something that I really want to get your thoughts on, and I know you'd actually mentioned the North Texas logjam. Tanner Tessman going off to Clemson on a 2-sport scholarship. Nico Carrera going off to college.
Louisville.
Sorry? Yeah, Louisville.
Louisville. For Nico, Louisville.
Yeah, Diego Latif heading to
Tigres,
and Johan Gomez going to Porto.
Yep.
Obviously, the latter two, those are pretty nice offers if you get them. You've got academy players not signing those North Texas deals. I mean,
yep.
Is this part of the plan, or is this kind of some growing pains in the early stages?
Let's throw Seth Wilson and Clemson in there too.
Oh, yeah.
This is a growing pains of the system. And I wrote a long article about it, and this is not to be a criticism of FC Dallas, just as much to say this is the current landscape. It's like right now they're having difficulty convincing homegrowns to take North Texas contracts. Now, I was specifically mentioned that Diego Latif and Johan Gomez are 2 of the 6 players that have turned down contracts. I don't want to mention the other ones because they're kids, but the 2 that left, I think it's okay to mention them. So Latif went to Tigres and Gomez went to Porto. Those 2 specifically took other options, and they didn't take options that pay money. They both went to the under-19 team of another team. So, and then the guys that have committed to college, how many of them have offers and whatnot or whatever, but none of them are signing, other than Rayo. None of them are who probably wasn't. I've never seen a college commitment from him anyway, so I don't think he ever was even interested in college. But they're not taking the deals. And so basically, I know one of the people that turned it down was over length. Some of them are about money. Most of them are about money. And when we're talking about a young kid who's had preached at him the whole time, this whole we're all in this together, we're all one big family, you're a big part of the club just as much as the pro team. Okay, I'm 18 years old, awesome, I'm ready to sign. Here's 20 grand. Right? Like a homegrown deal minimum is 70 grand. It's kind of a slap in the face a little bit. And then, and other than Pepe, of course, we haven't seen a single player go from North Texas to FC Dallas. And Pepe, I think Pepe's a smoke screen. Pepe was always going to be a homegrown. Mm-hmm. Great that he was willing to do the North Texas thing first. That's the way it should be. But there should be 5 or 6 guys a year signed as homegrowns. And right now, it's not happening.
And Pepe signing that North Texas SC deal first was crucial to North Texas SC, really gaining credence as a soccer club of its own, not just being a reserve team.
I mean, it was great that he's willing to do it, and great that they thought of it, and great that they did it. But I've specifically had parents of some of these kids turn down deals say to me, Pepe doesn't count. They all know he doesn't count. They all know that he was going to be a homegrown at some point. So, he's the kind of player that homegrowns are for. Truly, truly special. It's the next level guys. It's the guys that we've mentioned, right? Those are the guys that you're now missing on who, for me, now, the one I won't say that about is actually Seth Wilson. Not that I'm speaking of it, that he's turned down a deal. I have no idea. But goalkeepers mature later. So I'm okay with Seth Wilson going to play college and USL ball for 3 or 4 years. That's fine. He'll be 22. Keepers play till they're 40 if they want, right? So no big deal. It's the guys that are the really skilled midfielders, your Tessmans. It's guys like, and maybe even some younger guys, maybe even like Jonathan Gomez, with his brother now having gone to Porto. I mean, that one worries me. That's one of the best talents left in the academy. And I'm now worried that he's going to go to Porto too, right? Because his older brother did. So it's like they got to figure out a way to crack this nut and get some of these guys to stay. Guys that are drawn to the college life, guys whose families don't get soccer. You got to figure a way to cross this hurdle as an organization, or you're going to miss out on bags of talent.
Do you think there's any blowback from when Weston McKennie went to Schalke and then FC Dallas signed up? Some players who really weren't quite ready yet. I mean, we knew that Brian Reynolds was going to be there at some point, but it took him a few years of being on the first team payroll. And you said that the minimum for a homegrown is 75. Well, let's be honest, half of these guys are on double that, or at least 6 figures. And to be offered like a 20 grand part-time kind of salary, it's, I mean, it could almost be taken as a bit of a slap in the face of saying, well, I put in the same work as them, and you're telling me that I'm going to get to their level, so why not put me on that same timeline of when they were 15, 16, 17, they were getting the money and I'm getting some chump change.
Yeah, you can even look at Dante Seeley, who was a year ago, who turned down a North Texas offer, or refused North Texas offer. Now he has some bargaining position because Dante's got a TNT passport, which gives him other options that other guys don't have. Somehow through TNT in Spain, I think he has options to go before he's 18 even. So, but again, Dante Seeley is a special kind of talent. So, the FC Dallas definitely had to spend some years signing guys to protect their investment. Paxton and Jesus both were signed really before they should have been, in order to not lose them. That's what the homegrown deals almost have to be. They have to be for guys that you can't afford to lose, even if they're 16, 15 years old, guys that are truly special, like Pepe, for example. But you're right. Like if you're the next guy, if you're that next level guy, and let's use Tanner Tessman as an example, because I think he's supremely talented, but isn't Pepe Golden Boy talented, right? Mm-hmm. If you go to Tanner Tessman, whose dad works for Dabo Sweeney at Clemson, and you say, Tanner, here's 20K, here's 40K. Well, dude, that's not even worth the college scholarship I'm getting, let alone actually paying me. Now, FC Dallas does include free education through their agreement with Southern New Hampshire for any North Texas signings. So you would get that. Academy signings, I should say, that you would get that, that value, but that's not the same as, let's look at Tessman. That's not the same as the Clemson case, right? And also where he's going to play football for Clemson and be in that whole environment. I mean, that's super hard to turn down for an American kid. And you're going to offer me 20 to 40 or whatever it is they offered him. I mean, that's a no-brainer that he would turn that down. It's like, if you want, somehow or another, you got to figure out how to convince these kids. And believe me, you and I know that you're not going to develop into as good of a pro in college as you are playing for North Texas. North Texas is unequivocally better situation. But sometimes it's not about just that. It's like you're going to look at the money that people have been getting that haven't played in 3 years, getting paid 70, 80K a year, 100K a year, and now you want me to do the same thing for 20. So you can see why there's a disconnect.
Yeah, I do think Tessman's a bit of a special case. When your coach is someone you lovingly call Uncle Bo, and you're on the idea of, hey, we're going to put you on the football scholarship. We want you to kick some field goals and stuff. Oh, by the way, there is a pretty decent chance you will have a national championship in 2 different sports.
Yeah,
and no matter what you do, that's going to be,
let's use a different example. Let's use a different example then. Let's look at Nico Carrera, right? U17 for Mexico, U17 for the United States, plays in the Worlds, right? That's about as high level a defender as you're going to see. And he's probably got teams from Mexico calling him, I bet, right? He's got this Louisville offer on the table. Not that Louisville's the juggernaut that some of the other schools are, but still, nice opportunity, right? So again, you're going to offer him who knows what, right? A North Texas budgeted contract. Why would he do that? It's like that kid's probably got 5 Mexican teams on the phone offering him money, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. And you could pick any player that you think of as like, oh, that's a dude I want to have play for North Texas because I think he can play for FC Dallas someday. Like even a Johan Gomez, who was slightly borderline on that, if you wanted him to pay him to play for North Texas, he's like, he got a chance to go to Porto. Why wouldn't you jump at that? If it doesn't work out a year or 2 later, then you can come back and play for North Texas, right? I would think. I wouldn't think they would turn him down if he were to come back.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah. So it's a problem that FC Dallas has to figure out how to overcome, because there's this second tier of talent that is potential pro talent that you don't want to lose out on. You don't want to miss out on it. Some of it you might never make it to MLS. Some of it you might sell. But it's like, it's part of how this, you don't want to have to go to your 3rd or 4th tier talent to fill up your North Texas roster and lose out on, because if these guys all go to college, then they can just go anywhere. Once they're 18, they can do whatever they want. Can't go to another MLS team, but there's it's a million teams in the world to go to.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Right.
I mean, what's the worst case? It looks like something like Shaft Brewer, where he goes off to Europe, it doesn't pan out, so, he ends up having LAFC pay $50,000 to release his rights, and okay, yeah, it didn't work out too well for him there either eventually. But that just with those steps already, it's something to get your foot in the door, and you know that you're at least a raw talent that coaches will want to develop.
Yeah, there's an appeal to. You're fighting against both the appeal of college or the appeal of the Europe or the Mexico, especially for all these Mexican kids that FC Dallas has a lot of. They all turn 18. They got the world in front of them. It's MLS is just one small tiny corner, and in order to get them to take those lower North Texas deals, you're going to have to do some work to convince them it's right. Because no one's going to want to. If they don't think it's right, they're going to go somewhere else. So they can't feel like they're giving up something to stay with you. Just not that much. Give up a little bit maybe, but not that much. That seems like a lot.
Definitely.
One of the things that a lot of people don't know about is you can actually trade homegrown rights. It doesn't happen very often, but there's been a couple players in the last 2 years that have been traded. So let's say, for example, you're a purple team that plays in Florida, and you have your technical director as a former technical director for a Dallas team, and your head coach is a former head coach of a Dallas team and a former academy director of a Dallas team. And let's say your purple academy is Jack, has never produced squat.
That seems very accurate.
Let's say that you happen to know some of the talent that's plays for FC Dallas Academy that may be looking to sign a contract, that may want to be a homegrown. Maybe you can call FC Dallas and say, the going rate seems to be something between 100K to 200K of TAM GAM and a pick or two or an international slot, somewhere in that range. But you could easily see, Orlando is just one example of somebody, because there's 80% of the league has crap academies. And so you might see, maybe that's an answer. Maybe that's why if FC Dallas has no room for homegrowns, maybe they can trade some of these homegrown rights for an asset that they can actually use, some TAM gam. Although the collective bargaining agreement's going to change a lot of things this winter, so I wouldn't do it right now. But if you're a kid that's not getting a homegrown offer from FC Dallas and you happen to know Oscar and Muzi, I mean, get them on the phone, right?
No,
hey guys, how'd you like to have me come play for you? I mean, it's possible, sure, and they're just one of 20 teams now in this league that might be more than happy to come steal some homegrowns from FC Dallas.
Yeah, I mean that is effectively what happened with Shaft Brewer.
Yes,
and you mentioned the Tam Gam thing and the CBA. We've heard reports where some technical directors have said, as a policy, we're not spending TAM because we think it's going to go away, or we don't know where it's going to go to, or I think it was Brian Schmetzer in Seattle had also Garth Lagerwey in Seattle had said they haven't made any significant sign-ins as defending champs, but they're like, well, we're not going to jeopardize the players we've got in case TAM does go away and we have to suddenly pull a.
Yeah.
And like LA did a couple of years ago when they end up jettisoning Gio de Santos.
Yeah, they're waiting to see if the rules change because there could be all kinds of rules that could change with this one.
We're also waiting to see if the season starts on time because there's a lot of talk of there's a high possibility of a stoppage and the season not starting in February for the first time.
Oof, what a drag that would be.
Yeah,
I hope not. I hope not.
And then
I don't think this league is robust enough to be able to handle that. I hope the players see that this league is still fragile on some levels. I know somebody just paid $300 million for an expansion fee, but this isn't, the NFL. This is still Major League Soccer. Hopefully they can. Whew.
I think last time, they budgeted on support from the NFL Players Association, who are probably the weakest players association of all. So there wasn't a lot there, but it's all political at this point. It's who's talking to who. I know the Independent Supporters Council and the MLS Players Union have been in close contact for a while, and while there won't be like financial support from a group like that, there is pressure on the owners. Your customers are suddenly taking their dollars elsewhere. It could get messy. It may not. I haven't had a chance to listen to it, but our good friend Dustin Nation, with the greatest name ever, actually spoke to someone about the CBA who used to work for the Players Union. I will definitely take a listen to that at some point.
Yeah, recommend his podcast. That one for sure.
Yeah, Dallas Sports Nation. It's, definitely a solid one. It was fun to be on his live show at the end of last year as well. I think all three of us have been on his show at one point or another, haven't we?
Yeah, I've done it too. So has Peter. Yeah. Friend of third degree, we call him.
Absolutely. He's a friend of everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're both going to get tweeted with all this gushing thanks now. So you're welcome, Dustin.
Yeah. Shout out.
So that kind of brings us pretty full circle of physicals start up on Friday. If you're listening to us on Friday, happy days. First session 10 a.m. on Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Monday. I'll be there. I take it you'll be there.
Oh yeah. And then Tuesday's Lucci's season opening press conference.
Yeah, well, some of us have to be at work for that. So I won't get lunch on the team with Dan Hunt.
Yeah,
but that you can match. That can be the new thing. You've had lunch with Lucci and then lunch with Dan Hunt too.
Well, the one on Tuesday will be a group thing, but I think I'm going to go Monday and Tuesday both. We'll see how I'm feeling about doing both, but it's got to get a good start to the season, right?
Absolutely. And I know a lot of fans traditionally have come out to the first session. Obviously, every year MLS makes it a little bit harder, and FC Dallas puts a little bit more tarp up. To combat that, quite often fans will drive a truck and just stand on the tailgate and look over from the parking lot. So, I'm not going to say, hey, come out, but Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe we'll see you.
Did you want to talk about the NWSL draft?
I did, actually, yes. So, I actually haven't finished writing story yet, so maybe the pod will beat it out. DFW had a couple of local players drafted last year. Julie James Doyle drafted by Sky Blue FC with the 11th pick last year. She's kind of really excelled. A Sting product who played at Baylor, played for FC Dallas in the WPSL. This year she's got a couple of players potentially following her. You've got Sierra Hinson, who is a from Garland, striker, again from Sting, two-time All-American. She is going to North Carolina FC, I believe. The back-to-back NWSL champions. It'd be interesting to see if she succeeds there. And then another one, someone who has played for FC Dallas in the WPSL is Chelsea Washington. She's been drafted out of Bowling Green State, which is always the weirdest name for a university. Solar Chelsea product originally from Carrollton. Fantastic midfielder, proper midfielder, wearing a number 7 jersey. Not like your Aggie girl, Ali Watt, who as a striker wears number 1. Kind of strange.
Ali, we're going to have a conversation about that. Number 1.
Watt is one of the many Colorado Rush products. Drafted really high up in the first round. She'll go far in it. We hopefully see a couple more DFW kids, and then there's a talent. There's a real production line now. The FC Dallas are in the DA and kind of taking it all seriously. We've seen what Solar are doing with the likes of Alexis Mazzimo, Trinity Byers and Jaden Shaw, who they took from FC Dallas in a ton of events.
That U17 team for Solar girls is just ridiculously stacked. Yes. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
I've never seen a team like that.
We haven't seen somebody from North Texas or from Texas at all on a U.S. Women's World Cup roster since Carla Overbeck lifted the trophy in '99. So, give it a few years and we might see a repeat.
Yeah, that'd be nice. See some of those young ladies make it to the top would be fantastic. Represent Texas.
Definitely do it for Texas. Overbeck, like Hinson and Julie James, from that Dallas Sting team that was the women's national team before there was a women's national team. Kind of, if you've never looked into that, it's a really cool story. I know the Dallas Morning News did a whole visual thing a couple of years ago. There's plenty out there about them playing at international tournaments and just being like crazy good.
Sting is a massively huge club. Back in the day, it was the biggest club in the Metroplex for ladies and for young girls. It's not anymore, but they did just merge with some really up and coming boys teams to make a whole larger unified club that are more like Solar, more like FC Dallas. So
really?
I'd love to see Sting, get back up where they belong. At least on the girls' side is still called Sting, but the boys' side is called something else. I can't remember what it is. I think that's who that was. Hopefully, I'm not speaking out of turn. I think they just merged with somebody. Let me pause while I Google that real quick.
Yeah. And while you're googling that, there was that other move, the Liverpool FC Academy, which produced Keaton Parks. Now Borussia Dortmund International Academy, which is kind of jarring. I was doing some grocery shopping and started seeing people in Borussia Dortmund kits.
Yeah, I was right. Sting merged with a group called Titans Football, which is an up-and-coming boys club that I don't know a lot about, admittedly, but I have heard of them. And the other traditional women's club that has merged with some of the boys' side is Defeaters, which used to be a big, powerful club in the Metroplex. They merged with Dallas Kicks, which is the boys team that did some things at the Dallas Cup last year that was like, who the heck is this team? And I never even heard of them. And they're an up and coming team from not from some of the traditional hotbed areas too. Dallas Kicks is so. Some interesting things happening on the club scene from some with the merging of some traditional female powers with some newer young men's powers that might shake up the scene just a little bit. And of course, Texans and Solar is doing great things, both men and women, and FC Dallas, they should be doing better on the women's side. I wish, but I understand what there's not a pro outlet for them yet, so they're getting better. So some just not that not compared to that one Solar team, which is just crazy good. Yeah. The 17s, but
well, maybe someday we'll have to find a real youth academy expert generalist who can jump on.
We need one.
Yeah, maybe Pete.
We need one full time actually for us.
Yeah, it doesn't pay, but apply at third degree.
Yeah,
net
I mean year round, not full time money. There ain't no money yet, not in this. Maybe someday. Thank you, by the way. Shout out to all the patrons who do support us. Well, it's not a job, but it is. Every little bit helps, and patreon.com/third degree if you'd like to support the podcast. Every little bit does help. It helps pay for the equipment and the service we use to record this thing, and it helps all of us to get to Frisco and back, and hopefully soon it might get us a camera.
And that toll that you have to pay at the airport to interview players when they land.
Yeah, it is $10 each way for me to go to training, so every little bit helps. That's just in tolls. Ooh. So every little bit helps. So I appreciate all the love we get from the patrons, and there is some bonus content there for just them that's not on the site. We give them a little extra love, extra insider info.
Maybe they'll even get some fresh audio from the first practice next week.
That'd be lovely.
And of course, there is the t-shirt store, which has that phenomenal red, black, and wasabi green flying horse now. The
96 flying horse, lovely. Mike Miller helped me out with that. That was good stuff. Yeah. That shirt, I sold a bunch of those. It's now my number one selling shirt in only like a week,
wow.
Which is amazing. All right, Dan, I think that's probably about everything. Do you have anything else we need to talk about?
Nah, just going to grumble and wish Peter was back.
Peter's a professional host. It does make a difference, but hopefully he'll be back soon.
Yeah, and good at clipping it all together.
Yes. Yeah.
So if we sound a bit ropey, it's probably my fault, but not really.
No, we'll be good. Peter will be back, and professionalism will climb back up next week, hopefully, and the podcast will continue every week through the rest of the season.
Well, happy preseason, Buzz.
Happy preseason to you. I'm ready to get going. Let's get started.
Absolutely, and thank you as always for stopping by and listening to a little bit of our, well, mostly Buzz's insight, and joining us once again on Third Degree, the podcast.